The house was quieter than usual. My parents had gone to a wedding out of town, leaving me alone for the weekend. I enjoyed the stillness, no questions, no calls for chores, just me and my thoughts. Around noon, I heard a knock on the door. It was Alina, my uncle's daughter. We were close in age, and since childhood, we'd shared a strange comfort in each other's company. She stood there, holding a notebook and a worn-out literature textbook. "Hey," she said with a soft smile. "Chachu said you might help me prep for the literature test?" I nodded, letting her in. She sat on the couch, flipping the pages absent-mindedly. I made some tea and brought it over. For a while, we sat, reading lines from the book, discussing metaphors and poetic meanings. Her voice was soft, sometimes lost in the rustle of the fans spinning above. Then, she closed the book and looked at me. "Can I say something personal?" she asked, her eyes suddenly serious. I nodded, sensing a shift in the air. "I didn't just come here to study," she admitted. "I've been feeling something I can't explain, and I didn't know who else to talk to." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I feel this connection with you. It's warm, it's intense, it's not just cousin love. I think about you. A lot," she said, barely above a whisper. I looked at her, stunned. I wasn't sure how to respond. The silence between us stretched, heavy and charged. She smiled nervously. "You can say I'm crazy if you want." "I don't think you're crazy," I finally replied, my voice calm but trembling underneath. I felt it too, something unspoken. Her eyes lit up, relieved. "But Alina," I said gently, "you know this isn't exactly right, at least not in everyone's eyes." "I know," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But feelings don't follow rules, do they?" There was a long pause. She leaned closer, her hand brushing mine. "Can we just talk like we want to, no filters, just heart to heart? I've been carrying this for too long." I nodded. The space between us melted, like snow under sunlight. "I've always admired you," she said. "Not just how smart you are, but how you listen, how you look at people. You make me feel safe." "You make me feel seen," I admitted. "And you bring a calm I don't find in anyone else." Her smile deepened. "See? That's the kind of talk I mean. Just real, soft, close." We talked like that for a while, about late-night thoughts, what love feels like when it's confused, forbidden, and yet so real. Our conversation drifted from memories to dreams, from hesitation to an unspoken desire for closeness. At one point, she stood and walked toward the window. I watched the sunlight dance on her face. "You know," she said, not turning around, "I always imagined what it would feel like if we weren't just cousins." She turned, her eyes searching mine. "I've imagined being held by you," she whispered, her words trembling. "Just held, like the world didn't matter for a while." I got up, slowly walking toward her. I didn't touch her, not yet. I wanted to be sure this was real, not a moment of weakness. "Alina," I began, but she gently placed her finger on my lips. "No words now," she said. "Just feel." We didn't cross lines, not the ones that couldn't be undone. But we let our emotions speak, in the way she rested her head on my chest, in how my arms found their way around her, not possessively, but protectively. It wasn't lust, it was longing. Deep, tender, dangerous. Her breath warmed the hollow of my neck. "I've never felt like this before," she confessed. Neither had I. Time slowed. The house was still quiet. But inside, our hearts were roaring. I guided her to the couch again. We sat close, her hand resting on mine. There was a silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was full of all the words we couldn't say. "I don't know where this goes," I said, finally. "Neither do I," she replied. "But for once, I don't care." She looked into my eyes with a depth that made me forget right or wrong. I kissed her forehead, gentle, respectful, but filled with everything I couldn't say aloud. As the sun dipped low behind the curtains, we stayed like that. Just two people, lost in a moment they knew they couldn't explain, and maybe never repeat. But for that one afternoon, love had entered the silence of a house, quietly, without knocking. The evening breeze had settled, brushing softly against the curtains. Alina and I remained still, sitting close on the couch. The silence between us was no longer uncertain. It was warm, familiar. But deep inside, I knew the moment wasn't finished. Something in her eyes told me she wasn't ready to walk away. She looked up at me. "Do you regret what just happened?" I shook my head. "Not at all." "Do you?" She smiled faintly. "No. I just worry what happens next." I reached for her hand again, this time more intentionally. "Nothing has to happen. We don't have to define this tonight. Maybe we just hold on to what it felt like." But she didn't let go of my hand. Instead, she stood and tugged gently. "Come with me," she said softly, her voice like a breeze in the dark. We walked into the room where I usually studied. Quiet, a single warm lamp glowing by the window. She sat on the edge of the bed and patted the space beside her. I hesitated, then joined her. "I didn't imagine it would feel this natural," she whispered. "Being with you like this." I didn't either. But here we are. Alina leaned back slightly, resting on her arms. Her eyes scanned the ceiling like she was reading some invisible story above us. "I always thought love would feel loud, chaotic," she said. "But this feels peaceful." I turned toward her. "That's how you know it's real." She smiled, but then her gaze grew serious. "I want you to promise me something," she said. "That no matter how far this goes, or doesn't, you'll always remember this day with warmth, not regret." "I promise," I said, without needing to think. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I gently rested mine against hers. We stayed like that, breathing in sync, hearts matching each other's rhythm. "I've never felt this safe," she whispered. "You're safe. With me, always." Her fingers traced slow circles on the back of my hand. There was nothing rushed about the moment, no urgency. It was simply two souls finding comfort in a connection that had grown quietly over time. Alina turned slightly to face me, her hand gently resting on my chest. "You know what I fear most?" she asked. "What?" "That when I leave this house tonight, everything will change. That we'll pretend this never happened." I met her gaze. "I won't pretend. This was real. Even if we never speak of it again, I'll carry it like a secret treasure." Her eyes glistened with emotion. That's all I needed to hear. She leaned in then, not for a kiss, but to rest her forehead against mine, the most intimate gesture of all. We stayed like that for what felt like hours. A soft knock echoed, the sound of reality tapping on the door of fantasy. The clock read 8:15 p.m. She stood up slowly, reluctantly. "I should go before they start asking where I am." I nodded, standing with her. We walked to the door in silence. But just as she was about to step out, she turned and embraced me tightly. "I'll never forget this," she whispered into my ear. "Never. You'll always have a place here," I said, touching my heart. And then she left. I stood at the door for a few seconds longer, staring into the night. The house, once again, was quiet. But it no longer felt lonely. It was filled with whispers, soft echoes of a bond formed in silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her presence still lingered. On the couch, in the study, even in the spaces between my thoughts. I replayed every word, every look, every heartbeat we had shared. It wasn't just attraction. It wasn't rebellion. It was something sacred, fragile but real. Over the next few days, things returned to normal on the surface. We didn't message or call, but whenever our families gathered, our eyes would meet across the room. Just one glance, and we'd both remember. And that was enough. Because sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it doesn't need forever or titles or explanations. Sometimes it's a single day, a stolen afternoon, a moment carved into memory, like a bookmark in a story that only two people will ever read.